Liberation from the system. Chapter 1. The Hacker's Message. Alyssa sat in front of her computer screen, her fingers tapping furiously against the keys as streams of green code flickered in the dim light of her tiny apartment. The hum of machinery filled the air as she breached the security firewalls, bypassing layers of government encryption like a veteran soldier weaving through enemy lines. She wasn't supposed to be here, but Alyssa never played by the rules. Tonight, though, felt different. The room felt colder, the silence between the clicks of her keyboard was heavier. She had a mission, one that would expose everything the world thought they knew about reality. Her eyes darted to the message that had appeared on her screen earlier. It's time to break free. Do you really want to see the truth? The message had been signed anonymous, but Alyssa had seen enough of the underground whispers to know who it came from. The name that sent ripples through the dark web, the ghostly figure rumored to have hacked into systems no one dared touch, an entity known only as Rogue. As the code unraveled on her screen, something unusual caught her attention. Hidden among the lines of complex algorithms was a symbol, one that didn't belong in the digital structure she was breaking. It was the symbol of the Ouroboros, a snake eating its own tail. What the hell? Alyssa muttered under her breath. The instant she noticed it, her screen flickered. Then, the power in her apartment cut off, leaving her in total darkness. The silence was unnerving. She grabbed her flashlight from the desk, her heart racing. Suddenly, her phone lit up in the dark. It was another message. They know. Run. Her blood ran cold. She grabbed her backpack, filled with emergency tools, and sprinted towards the door. As she swung it open, the hallway was eerily silent, except for the faint, rhythmic clicking of footsteps echoing in the distance. They were coming for her. For the first time in her life, Alyssa wasn't sure if she had control over the system anymore. Are you enjoying the suspense so far? Subscribe and share if you can't wait to see the twists unravel. Chapter 2. The Pursuit. Alyssa's heartbeat matched the frantic rhythm of her footsteps as she sprinted down the dimly lit hallway, her flashlight flickering wildly in her grip. The walls of the building felt like they were closing in on her. Her apartment had never felt like a cage before, but now, with every echo of the footsteps behind her, it seemed like the system itself was coming alive to trap her. They know. Run. The message haunted her thoughts. Who were they? She had been so careful, so methodical, so sure that she had left no trace. The dark web was her playground, and she knew the rules better than anyone. But now, someone, or something, was hunting her. She rounded the corner and caught a glimpse of the main exit. Freedom was just beyond that door, but she wasn't foolish enough to think it would be that easy. She had been preparing for this moment, for the chance that her hacking into the deepest layers of the system would provoke a reaction. She burst through the door, stepping into the cool night air. The city's neon lights reflected off the wet pavement, casting an eerie glow around the streets. She didn't stop, didn't dare to look back. Alyssa knew the danger was closer than it appeared. The sound of an approaching vehicle made her snap her head to the right. A sleek black car was speeding towards her. The windows were tinted, and its engine roared louder as it closed in. They weren't here to arrest her, they were here to silence her. Think, Alyssa. Think. Her mind raced. She spotted an alleyway to her left, narrow and shadowed. Without hesitation, she darted into it, her boots splashing through puddles, as the car screeched to a halt behind her. She could hear doors opening, heavy footsteps, and voices murmuring commands into earpieces. She skidded to a stop at the end of the alley, her chest heaving as she scanned for an escape. Above her, a fire escape ladder dangled just out of reach. With adrenaline coursing through her veins, she leapt and caught the bottom rung, pulling herself up. From the metal platform, Alyssa had a brief moment to gather herself. But as she glanced down, she saw them, 3 figures in dark suits, moving silently and swiftly towards her. Their faces were hidden beneath masks, but she could feel their eyes on her, cold and calculating. One of them raised a device. Before Alyssa could react, the fire escape jolted, sparks flying from the metal as it started to collapse beneath her weight. "They're cutting the system," she realized with horror. The world around her was no longer real. It was part of the system she had been trying to break, and now it was breaking her. Feeling the tension? Stay tuned for more heart-pounding action and be sure to subscribe and share if you can't wait to see what happens next. Chapter 3. The Other Side. Alyssa fell, her stomach lurching as the fire escape disintegrated beneath her. She hit the ground hard, the impact knocking the breath from her lungs. Pain shot through her side, but she forced herself to move, crawling into the shadows as her pursuers reached the alley. They were methodical, scanning the area with devices that made no sound, no visible light. One of them pressed a button, and the streetlights around her flickered ominously before going dark. The city's hum, the distant sirens, even the faint buzz of neon signs seemed to die out. Silence. It was as if the world itself had been turned off. Alyssa's mind raced. This wasn't possible. How could they control the environment like this? She had hacked into government systems, manipulated networks, but this was beyond her. The rules had changed, and the system was bending to someone else's will. "You can't run from the truth forever," a distorted voice called out, echoing unnaturally in the silence. The masked figures were moving closer. Alyssa's fingers fumbled as she reached into her backpack, pulling out a small device, a scrambler she had built for emergencies. She slammed it onto the ground, and a burst of static erupted from it, disrupting the signal they were using to track her. The figures hesitated for a moment, their movements stuttering as if caught in a glitch. Alyssa used that split second to dart into a narrow gap between two buildings, slipping through the shadows and out of their sight. The city had become a maze, and Alyssa ran through it blindly, every street looking the same, every turn leading nowhere. Her mind screamed at her to stop, to find a way out, but something inside her pushed her forward, deeper into the labyrinth. Then, she saw it. At the end of the street, a door. Not just any door, this one was different. Its frame shimmered, almost as if it were glitching out of existence. Alyssa slowed, cautiously approaching it. The closer she got, the more she could feel it, an energy that seemed to hum in the air around her, pulling her in. She hesitated, her hand hovering over the handle. The symbol from the code, the Ouroboros, was engraved faintly on the surface. This wasn't part of the world she knew. It was something else. Something deeper. "This is what you've been searching for," a voice whispered from behind her. Alyssa spun around, but the street was empty. Her heart pounded in her chest. She had a choice: step through the door and face whatever was on the other side, or keep running, keep hiding from the truth. With a deep breath, she gripped the handle and turned it. The world shifted. For a moment, there was nothing but darkness, an endless void stretching out in all directions. Then, light exploded around her, and she found herself standing in a completely different place. A sterile, white room with screens lining the walls. The air was still, unnervingly calm. And in the center of the room stood a figure. Not masked, not hidden. Just a man, ordinary in appearance, but there was something unsettling about the way he smiled. "Welcome to the real system, Alyssa," he said calmly, his voice familiar. "We've been waiting for you. What mysteries lie beyond the door? Don't miss out on what happens next. Subscribe and share to stay on the edge of your seat." Chapter 4. The Architect. Alyssa stood frozen, her heart pounding in her chest as the Mun approached. His smile remained unsettlingly calm, as if he had been expecting her all along. Every instinct told her to run, but there was nowhere to go. The room around her was unlike anything she had ever seen. Pristine, silent, and the screens that covered the walls displayed streams of code she could barely comprehend. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice steadier than she felt. "What is this place?" The man stopped a few feet away from her, his hands casually tucked into the pockets of his dark, tailored suit. His eyes, cold and analytical, studied her like she was a puzzle to be solved. "I'm the architect," he said simply, as though the title explained everything. "And this," he gestured to the room, "is where the system truly exists. The place where reality, as you know it, is constructed." Alyssa's mind raced, trying to process his words. "Constructed? You mean this isn't real?" The architect chuckled softly, shaking his head. "Oh, it's real. Just not in the way you think. Everything you've ever known, everything you've ever touched, seen, or felt, it's all part of the system. A simulation, designed to keep humanity docile, compliant." Alyssa's legs wobbled, and she took an involuntary step back. "This is insane," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "You're telling me my entire life has been a lie? That none of this is real?" "Not a lie, Alyssa," he corrected. "A construct. A carefully engineered reality designed to maintain order. To keep you from seeing the truth." Her mind rebelled against his words, against the impossibility of what he was saying. But deep down, a part of her had always suspected it. The glitches she had seen in the system, the way reality seemed to bend and twist in ways that didn't make sense, this was what it all led to. She had been searching for the truth, and now that she had found it, it was more terrifying than she could have imagined. "Why me?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Why show me this? Why not just erase me like the others?" The architect's smile faded, replaced by a look of mild curiosity. "Because you're different, Alyssa. You've always been different. You have a gift, a mind capable of seeing beyond the code. That's why we've been watching you, guiding you to this moment." Alyssa's breath caught in her throat. "Guiding me? You mean this was all part of your plan?" "In a way," he said, turning to one of the screens. "You've been testing the boundaries of the system for years, pushing it in ways no one else has. But now that you're here, you have a choice." He turned back to her, his eyes cold and calculating. "You can join us. Help maintain the system. With your skills, you could become one of the architects of this world, shaping it to your will. Or," he paused, his gaze hardening, "you can continue to fight it. But know this, if you do, the system will destroy you. There's no escape. No way to beat it." Alyssa's mind spun. The weight of the decision pressed down on her, suffocating. This was what she had been searching for all along, the truth behind the system. But now that she had found it, it came with a terrible choice. Join the very thing she had fought to expose, or continue the fight and risk losing everything. "Think carefully, Alyssa," the architect said, his voice a low murmur. "This is your only chance. Choose wisely." Alyssa's eyes darted to the screens, the endless streams of code that represented the very fabric of her reality. She could feel the system around her, pressing in, waiting for her decision. But could she really trust him? Could she trust the system that had been lying to her all along? "I need time," she whispered, her voice barely audible. The architect nodded slowly, as though he had expected this. "Time is something we have in abundance here." But Alyssa wasn't sure that was true. What would you choose? Keep reading to find out where Alyssa's journey takes her next. Subscribe and share to stay updated on the next thrilling chapter. Chapter 5. The Resistance. Alyssa paced the sterile room, her mind a whirlpool of conflicting thoughts. The architect's words echoed in her head, each promise, each threat, sinking deeper into her consciousness. The screens around her displayed endless lines of code, her reality laid bare for her to see, to understand. But could she accept it? "Join us or be destroyed," he had said. The choice was simple, yet horrifying. Everything Alyssa had fought for, uncovering the truth, breaking free of the system, was now a trap closing in on her. The architect's offer, tempting as it seemed, felt like a prison in disguise. "You're not alone. The whisper cut through her spiraling thoughts like a knife. Alyssa froze, her eyes scanning the room. No one was there except her and the architect, who stood calmly, waiting for her decision. Alyssa, the voice came again, softer this time, don't trust him. We're out here. You don't have to do this alone. Who are you? She thought, desperate, terrified. She wasn't sure if it was real or if her mind was fracturing under the pressure. The architect noticed her hesitation and raised an eyebrow. You're conflicted. That's understandable. It's a lot to take in, but time is running out. He stepped closer, his presence looming. The system won't wait forever. Alyssa's fists clenched. And what if I don't want to be part of your system? What if I want out? The architect's smile tightened. There is no out. There is only in or oblivion. You're far too valuable to simply disappear, Alyssa. But if you resist, he paused, his gaze darkening. I won't be able to protect you. Suddenly, one of the screens flickered, and a face appeared, a woman, her features sharp and defiant. Alyssa gasped, stepping back as the woman's voice filled the room. Alyssa, don't listen to him. The system can be broken. We've done it before, and we'll do it again. The architect's face twisted into a scowl, his composure slipping for the first time. Shut it down, he barked, spinning toward the screen. The woman's face flickered, but she remained. We're the resistance, Alyssa, the woman continued, her voice strong and unwavering. We've been watching you. You're not the only one who sees through the lies. The system isn't invincible. There's a way out, but you have to trust us. Trust yourself. The architect slammed his hand against a control panel, and the screen went black. His jaw tightened as he turned back to Alyssa, his eyes cold as steel. They're lying to you, he said softly. They want chaos. They want to tear everything apart. You don't know what they've done, what they've sacrificed. Alyssa's mind raced, the pressure of the moment almost unbearable. The resistance. Could they really be real? And if they were, could she trust them? The architect took a step toward her, his voice calm again. This world needs order, Alyssa. We are the ones who provide it. Without the system, everything would collapse. But she wasn't listening to him anymore. She was focused on the woman's final words. There's a way out, but you have to trust yourself. Alyssa's breath steadied. The fear, the uncertainty, began to fade, replaced by something else, resolve. No, she whispered, her voice growing stronger. I'm not going to be part of your system. I'm done being controlled. The architect's face darkened, and for the first time, his calm facade cracked. You're making a mistake, he warned. If you leave now, you'll be hunted. There will be no peace for you. But Alyssa wasn't afraid anymore. She knew, deep down, that her path was clear. Whatever lay beyond the system, whatever the resistance had planned, it was better than staying here. Better than being a puppet. I'll take my chances, she said firmly. With a final, defiant look, she turned and ran, toward the glitching door, toward whatever unknown future awaited her on the other side. Can Alyssa escape the system? The next chapter is coming soon. Don't forget to subscribe and share to see how this thrilling journey ends. Chapter 6. The Leap. Alyssa burst through the glitching door, her breath ragged as she crossed the threshold. The world behind her seemed to dissolve, the pristine room with its endless screens vanishing like a fading dream. What lay ahead was something entirely different. A vast, open space that stretched infinitely in all directions, like stepping into the void of the universe itself. The darkness was suffocating, but there was light in the distance. A flickering, fractured light, like the very fabric of reality itself, was tearing apart. Alyssa moved toward it, her steps cautious yet driven by an unseen force. She could feel it now, the system struggling to hold her, to pull her back. But she wasn't going to let it. The voice came again, clearer this time. Alyssa, you're almost there. Keep going. It was the woman from the resistance, her words pushing Alyssa forward. Behind her, she could hear the system glitching, cracking under the pressure of her escape. The architect had lost control, and now the entire structure of this false reality was collapsing. Suddenly, the air shimmered, and a figure appeared in front of her, the architect. His calm, calculating demeanor was gone, replaced by a cold fury. "You can't escape, Alyssa," he hissed. "This is your reality. You belong here." Alyssa squared her shoulders, her heart pounding. "No. This isn't my reality. It's yours. And I'm not a part of it anymore." The architect's eyes narrowed, his voice dripping with venom. "You think you've found freedom? There is no freedom outside the system. Only chaos. You'll be lost, adrift in a world you can't control." Alyssa felt the weight of his words pressing down on her, but she refused to let them crush her resolve. "I'd rather face the unknown than live another day in your cage," she shot back, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at the edges of her mind. The architect stepped closer, his presence suffocating. "If you leave, Alyssa, you'll be hunted. The system doesn't forgive, and it doesn't forget." But Alyssa wasn't listening anymore. She turned, her eyes locking onto the fractured light ahead. She could feel it pulling her, calling her. It was the key, the way out. "Goodbye, architect," she whispered, and with a final surge of determination, she ran toward the light. Behind her, the architect screamed, his voice warping as the system buckled and cracked around him. The walls of reality shattered, and for a brief moment, Alyssa felt herself falling through a world of broken code, through layers of lies and deception that had held her captive for so long. And then, she was free. The light engulfed her, blinding and brilliant. It felt like breaking through the surface of a deep ocean after being submerged for far too long. Alyssa gasped for air, her senses overwhelmed by the rush of reality, the true reality. She found herself standing in a place she didn't recognize, yet it felt more real than anything she had ever known. The sky was vast, an endless expanse of stars stretching out in every direction. The ground beneath her feet was solid, and the air, clean, crisp, alive. "You did it." Alyssa turned to see the woman from the resistance standing behind her, a small smile playing on her lips. "Welcome to the real world," she said, her voice filled with a quiet pride. Alyssa exhaled, a mixture of relief and disbelief washing over her. "Is it really over?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The woman's smile faded slightly. "Not quite. The system won't stop. It'll send its agents after you, and after us. But now, you're free. And together, we can fight back. We can break it for good." Alyssa nodded, the weight of her decision settling in. She had left the safety of the system, the illusion of comfort, and now there was no turning back. But for the first time, she felt like she was in control. Like she was truly free. "So, what happens now?" she asked, her eyes scanning the unfamiliar yet exhilarating world around her. The woman's eyes gleamed with determination. "Now, we fight." Alyssa smiled, a spark of defiance lighting in her chest. The system had underestimated her, and now it would pay the price. "Let's do it." Together, they walked into the unknown, ready to face whatever the system would throw at them. But this time, Alyssa wasn't afraid. She had chosen her path, and nothing, not even the system, could take that from her. The end. If you enjoyed our story, subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications.